In today's episode, we're talking about how life is not fair, but God is fair. Why? How? Let's find out. And if you want to upgrade your money mindset, then click on the link www.millionairefoundations.com and watch my free training. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And today we're talking about life not being fair. And this topic came into being while I just went out for a meal with a few of my college friends, actually, from way back, known since I was 16 years old, and women that I absolutely love and adore. And it became very apparent, from our conversations, that life has treated each one of us in a different way and has not been fair in some regards, in different categories, be it relationships, love, money, whatever. And it got me thinking about this one point that I was making in that conversation, and I wanted to bring it to you today, which is life seemingly does not seem to be fair a lot of the times. When you look at life as it is for everyone, right? You can say life isn't fair. Why is someone, born with, they're taller, they're shorter, they are slimmer, they have this, they're born with that, in that background, they're born in this country, they're born in that country, they're born with, the silver spoon in their mouth, they're not born with a silver spoon in their mouth, they're born with both parents, without parents, as and on, right? People are born with different gifts and talents and abilities, and then certain privileges or lack in scarcity and so forth, right? So this happens all the time. And so we have to admit to this point. And as a money mindset coach, I really want you to own and accept this point, that life is not fair and life should not be fair. Why should it be fair? It's not fair. It isn't, right? And everything you think is a privilege or a gift can be seen as a burden by someone else. For example, a lot of people say people who are very good looking, they get all the advantages and so forth. Same time, this has been shown time and time again. If you are an above average female in terms of looks wise, or a man as well, if you are very, very beautiful, you will be persecuted against the opposite way. So people assume that you're arrogant. People assume things about you. So you do have the poor little pretty girl kind of syndrome, right? And same thing for a man as well. I'm just speaking one example. There are many other examples. The people who are born into very, very wealthy families have certain other disadvantages, which I may not be aware of, because we weren't born in those rich families, okay? So whether you see something as an advantage or not is a subjective thing as well. It's your perspective of thing. But as a bystander, as just when you look at life in general, you can say, well, life isn't fair because some people get opportunities and others don't. And I want you to accept that. I want you to own that. I want you to stop fighting it. I want you to believe, okay, so fine, life isn't fair. Now, so what do you do about it? This is where faith comes in. And I am coming from the Muslim perspective, and now because I am a practicing Muslim. But also, when you look at the Bhagavad Gita, when you look at the Old Testament, when you look at the Bible, the New Testament, throughout these religious texts, divine energy is telling you that yes, life may not seem fair, may at times it's actually not fair, but God is always fair. Your life is being taken, you are being taken care of by this universal energy, by divine source energy, and God is fair. Yes, you may not have certain talents, but then you are not set to do certain things. Your life purpose is not the same as everybody else's. For example, you may not have the football playing ability that some of the, like Ronaldo or Messi, right? But maybe your life purpose is not to be a football star. Maybe you have the gift of archery, or you have the gift of mathematics, or you have something else. Every single person has within them inherent gifts and talents and abilities. Now, God gives those gifts and talents and abilities to you in your DNA, in your psyche, in your energy, in your person. It's up to you to cultivate those talents and abilities and bring it forward. And therefore, we are given certain desires for that as well. So let me show you where I'm going with this. Life is not fair because you can't have the talents everybody else has. You can't have the things everybody else has. But sometimes if you think about it, you don't want it. There are many people who don't want to have name and fame. They don't want people to know in the private lives. I know for a fact that when I was talking to one of my friends, she's very private. She doesn't want anyone knowing her business. There are other people who want to have name and fame, whatever. Depending on your desires, you will have the abilities to fulfill those desires. So this is the point I was making to them today, that life is not fair. Not everyone has the same talents and abilities and gifts and privileges and so forth. But God is so fair. God gives you all the talent and abilities and makes way for you, gives you all the resources necessary for you to fulfill your desires, as long as you have faith and you're willing to go out and fulfill those desires, right? So let me give an example. Somebody could be born in a very, very poor background. I actually remember I interviewed someone, and I'm going to bring his up because I think he's a prime example for this. He's actually my mentor in my investments, and someone I absolutely love and admire, and that's Robert Rowley, right? His interview I did recently, so you can go back a few episodes, both on the podcast and on the YouTube channel, go back and have a look at his interview. Robert Rowley was born in a very, very poor household in Europe. And he was born in just really dire circumstances. It was really, really, if you look at his, if you listen to his interview, you understand the severity of what it was. But he grew up with a desire not to be poor. He wanted to be wealthy. So he was given this desire. Did he have the abilities? He didn't have the resources to buy the books. So what did he do? He went and read all the books from the library. He rented the books out and he read a book a day or something like that, something crazy. He read about 300 something books in 1 year, right, on all sales and marketing to be able to build his business. So when he left university, at the same time, he built his business up. So then he just took off. And then he learned about investing, and then he learned about so many other things. But the point being, this young boy who was born in a very, very poor household, at that time, it would be Eastern Europe. It was, I think he's from Romania or Slovakia. Romania, I think it is. He was born in Eastern Europe, which was at that time under this really harsh regime. And by all circumstances, it was unfair. Right? His parents did not have much money, and he grew up in poverty. He should stay in poverty. But he had the desire to be wealthy. So what did he do? He learned about it. He went out and learned how to, okay, so how do you become wealthy? You have to have a business. So he learned about business, but nobody in his family ever did business before. So he learned how to, how could he go learn from business, about running a successful business? He didn't have mentors at that time. So he reverted to books. He just read lots of books, and he read lots and lots of books and learned about business. And then he built on it. And then when he was able to make a little bit of money, then he was able to go and get mentors like Brian Tracy, who helped him to build even further. And now he is where he is, a multi-millionaire that he is at the moment, and highly successful, that he's helping other entrepreneurs and other people with their investments, right? That's one example. There are many, many examples like that. There are a few people who in this world who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, but lots of any successful entrepreneur that you've seen would be someone who had a desire and then went out and worked hard for it and then fulfilled that desire. I'm also one of those people. I can give you my example. Those of you who know my story, that my father was very, very wealthy. He remarried. My mother left my father. We went from riches to rags, to the point where we didn't have cutlery and we didn't have dinner plates or anything like that. We were eating out of yogurt pots and using plastic utensils, whatever else. It was really, really. And I remember staying in a house which had holes in it. There were mice infestation, all sorts of rubbish, right? So I grew up there, and then we ended up moving to London, and then I grew up in East London, and I lived in a ghetto council estate. I also grew up as a dyslexic person. Then I had studied really hard to get to where I am, so forth. I mean, my life has not been easy. Yet, when I look at my life and what's and on all the things that the curveballs that were thrown at me, which not one but two failed marriages, and being married to two really, really horrible, nasty. Well, second one really being narcissistic, the first one being bipolar, and the second one being narcissistic person. My life is the epitome of tragedy, right? But I don't see myself as a victim, and I turned my life around. And now, alhamdulillah, I run not one but 3 multi-7-figure businesses, and I'm very successful at it. And I have a very successful podcast, and I talk about my life, and I talk about it so openly, and I have a best-selling book and so forth. And I can just rant on all the achievements that Allah has blessed me with, right? But if I think about it, this child who was growing up in poverty in East London, in the ghettos of East London, why should she be where she is at the moment? Right? It makes no logical sense. Life isn't fair. And I can sit there and scream about how life isn't fair, or I can take what I have and make the best use of it. But why? How can you do that? You need to have faith in divine source energy. The divine source energy is not just giving you some random things. Divine source energy has a plan for you. God has a plan for you. And 2, God has given you the desires to show you what his plan is for you. So if God's plan for you is to become wealthy, that's why you have the desire to be wealthy. If God's plan is for you to be a pianist, that's why you have the desire to play the piano. If God's desire is for you to be a mathematician, that's why you'll have the desire to be great at maths and to go and do a master's degree and so forth, right? God places those desires in your heart so that you are able to fulfill those desires. And in order for you to fulfill desires, you have to go and work for it. And through that effort that you put into it, you are living your life purpose that God has designed for you. Does that make sense? Right? So this is why no 2 people will have a similar desire. And even if they seemingly outwards is a similar desire, they have different motivations for it. So someone can look at me and say, oh, well, I'm very ambitious and I want to make lots of money. Yes, it's true. I do, right? That's true. But why? What's my desire? What's motivating my desire? Why do I want to be wealthy? What is that motivates me? What makes me want to get out of bed and work on all these individual businesses? It's not necessarily, what may be true for someone else. Somebody else may want a Bentley or a car or a holiday or something else. I may want something else. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting a Bentley or a holiday, nothing at all like that. But I'm saying the motivation to make wealth will be different for different people, right? But the desires you have are given to you by God. And the talent and abilities you already either have or you can develop to fulfill those desires, because God's never unfair. So life may be unfair, but God's always fair. If you've been given a desire, you can either make excuses as to why you cannot get those desires, because you're born in the wrong country, because you're born into the wrong household, you're born into the wrong gender, you're born into the wrong environment, wrong century, whatever. You can come up with a million excuses as to why you cannot go out and fulfill your desires. Or 2, you can believe that you may be born in the most disadvantageous circumstances. You may have everything working against you, but if you have a desire that's been placed in your heart by divine source energy that you should go and fulfill this, or you should go and do XYZ, or you should create something, then divine source energy will make a way for you. The resources will be made available to you, and you will either have the talents and abilities, or 2, develop the talent and abilities required to fulfill those desires. This is where faith comes in. This is where you have to believe that your life purpose is greater than your awareness. Your knowledge of yourself is not as grand as divine energy's knowledge of you. So God knows you better than you know yourself. God's plan for you is better than you have plans for yourself. Your job is to recognize the desires and to fulfill the desires to the best of your abilities. Now, when I'm talking about desires, I'm talking about those healthy desires, not the desire to harm someone else. Those are negative, the ones which come from Satan, which come from dark energies. Let's not talk about that. I'm talking about healthy desires of being in a healthy relationship, having a successful business, having a successful job, having a healthy body, having a healthy environment. Those healthy desires that you have, they come from divine source energy. And if you've been given a particular desire for anything, that, trust me, believe me, and know this, the divine source energy would either has already given you the talent abilities and they're latent and you haven't developed them, or you will be given those talent abilities, or the seed for those talent abilities is already there and you have to cultivate it, you have to develop those talents and abilities, but you will become successful at it and you will achieve everything. You have all the resources you need to achieve those desires will be made available to you. Let's use an example. So if you have a desire at the moment, for example, you could be maybe working at a 9 to 5 at the moment, and you're making maybe 35k, the average wage at the moment in the UK. So if you're currently making the average wage and you have a desire in your heart to have your own business and to run a 7-figure business, as long as you have that desire, know that you can do it. And it doesn't matter where you are at the moment, you just have to have the desire and become aware of the desire, and then realize if you've been given the desire and it's a healthy desire, this desire is coming from divine source energy itself, it's coming from God itself. If God is placing the desire in your heart, then it doesn't matter how many disadvantages or how many negative things or how many obstacles are in the way of you achieving this particular desire, you will get there. You just have to remain faithful to this objection, to this goal, and know that everything will be made available to you, but you have to put the hard work into it as well. You can't expect nobody's born as a brilliant business person, right? There are few people who have a really great affinity for business, and they have certain talents which make them really successful at business, but no one's born a business person. You develop the skills to be a successful business person on the way of running a successful business. That's how you learn, right? You learn on the job. So if you have the desire to run a successful 7 or 8 figure business, then know that you have the ability for it. Even if that ability isn't known to you, because at the moment you're maybe in employment, you're working 9 to 5 and you're only making 50 or 35, 50K annually. Whereas your desire is to make 100K on a monthly basis. So if that's the case, know that you can. You just have to understand and accept that desire and then find a way to make it a reality. And there are different ways for it. I mean, if you've been given a desire, there will be 10 different routes available to you to fulfill that desire. You just have to hold on to the faith that if God has given you desire, then God has given you the ability to go with it to fulfill that desire. People have this idea that we have all these wishes and all these desires, and God just dangles his carrot in front of us and expects us to run after it, and that's it. And that's why we're running after it. No, we're not. That's not how God operates. I really want you to stop that thinking, okay? God isn't this malicious, this awful entity out there to hurt you, to cause you pain. No, not at all. And I was having this discussion with another friend today, and when I was saying, one of my friends is going through a lot of trials and tribulations, and I really, really feel that divine energy is really testing her. But she must be so close to God because God is building her character so strongly because she's going through those trials and tribulations. And she's a very strong lady, very, very strong lady. But she's been through so much in her life that's made her strong. And God knows what purpose God is doing that for her and what purpose she has to live. But she will. So you need to stop making excuses that life isn't fair. I could run a business if I didn't have family responsibilities. I could run a business if I was living in Canada. I could do this if I was living in America. I could do this if I was living in the UK. I don't care where you're watching this video. I don't care where you are listening to me today. I want you to accept the idea that life is not fair. And it's not meant to be fair. Okay? Life is as it is. Just accept it. But also know the fact that God is fair. If God has given you a certain desire, if God has put a goal in your heart to have that business, to have that relationship, to have that child, to have that, I don't know, home or car, whatever desire that you have at the moment, then God will make a way for you as long as you're willing to accept the challenge. You have to rise up to the challenge. So for example, if you are currently in a 9-to-5 job earning 50K a year and your goal is to have a 7-figure business, then know that you first accept the desire that you want to have a successful 7-figure business. Step number 2 would be finding out what kind of businesses you can run successfully or what kind of business you would like to run. Thirdly, would be working out, okay, what's my first step? What's my second step? What's my third step? What's my way out? What's my strategy to exit my job and start on my business? Or do I do it simultaneously? Or do I run my business during daytime and start my side hustle in the evening and eventually have an exit strategy for my job to work full time on my business? What am I supposed to do? And how can I do it? What talent abilities do I bring to the table? What talented abilities do I lack? Who do I need to hire? Where can I get this from? What talent abilities do I need to develop? Which one can I delegate? So forth. Are you with me? Right? So the first step is accepting that life is not fair. And we all know that. But if God has given you a desire, God is fair. So God will give you all the resources available and has already implanted within you, they may be latent, all the talents and abilities and everything that you could ever need to make that desire a reality. Okay? It's all about you. It's about who you want. And it's about the person you become in the process. It's not about you getting that car, that house, that business, that relationship, that child. It's about the person you become in the process while you are aiming to get that particular goal. Make sense? God is not there to make you suffer, to make you cry, to get your hopes up and then disappoint you. God is there to build your character. God is helping you to realize your full potential. Somebody, I wish I could credit the speaker who said this. And unfortunately, the names popped in my head. But the speaker said recently, I heard it on one of the videos that I was watching, he said, the reason why your soul's crushed at certain times is because you are so set in certain ways that before you can be remolded into a better version of yourself, so your soul, you as a person, as you think you are, needs to be totally crushed. And I remember thinking that's absolutely true in my own case. So when my life fell apart back in 2016, when I found out about my ex's affairs, and then I found out about all the other affairs and everything that he'd been doing during our we were married for 7 years, and during our entire 7 year of marriage, the amount of betrayal, the level of betrayal and things he'd been doing behind my back and everything, and making me a fool or whatever, it completely crushed me in every way possible. It was difficult for me to explain to people how much it broke me as a person. And I had to keep myself strong for the sake of my children. So I remember for about 2 months, when I first caught him in the literally red-handed, I didn't sleep. I would, during the day, I would smile, put a smile on my face and keep everything going for my kids. But I would cry all night long on my prayer mat, and I'll be praying the Hajj, the midnight prayer, and I'll be crying to God and be asking for, for patience, for the ability to forgive my ex, for all sorts of things. I was just crying my heart out to divine source energy. That's how I was crushed. I was completely crushed as a person. But then from when I was completely crushed and I completely broke down, I became a whole new person again, and I am so much stronger for it now. Now, when I look back at my life, was that one of the most difficult stages of my life? Probably the most difficult stage of my life. But would I change it? No, because I wouldn't be now who I am had I not been through that experience. But the desire in me to make sure that I can provide for my children, to make sure that they still have that kind of lifestyle, to make sure they still go to those private schools and they have that kind of, the opportunities available to them, drove me to make sure that I had a certain amount of, my business. I did set up a business. I was at home to my children, so my children got to see their mother rather than actually just a nanny. And my children were able to live pretty much normal life and saw their mother regularly. At the same time, they had the opportunity to go to those certain schools and certain, certain other things that were available to them. I made sure that I gave them everything that I wanted, and I did. I used that as a motivation, and I became this strong, independent person, and it flourished into where I am at the moment, right? So have I done well? Yes, by most people's standards, in my own standards, I've done well. And I'm really, alhamdulillah, very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the desire, every step of the way, if I look at it, the desire for me to have that came first. The ability came second. I didn't know I could be a podcast host. I didn't know that I could be a best-selling author. Keep in mind that I'm dyslexic, so becoming an international bestseller was never on my agenda. It never occurred to me that I could become a writer, let alone best-selling author. And to run not one but multiple 7-figure businesses simultaneously while remaining full-time mother, working around my children, working around from home, working with my kids and around their timetable, pick and drop and school runs and whatever else and everything else, that I do that with them. So I didn't think that was possible, but it was. And God gave me the ability to do all of that and the resources to be able to do all of that. And I was able to delegate a lot of the tasks, and I have been able to do that, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do all the things that I can do at the moment. Does it make sense? God is always, always fair. Life may not seem fair, but God always is. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you got some value from it. And I hope you're picking up from my experience and from the people that I mentioned as well. You have so much ability, so much talent. God has given you so much talent, ability, more than you could ever use in this lifetime, maybe in another 10 lifetimes. But a lot of that talent may be latent. And the only way you're going to become familiar with it or become aware of it is when you accept those desires, those secret desires in your heart, for that job, for that business, for that achievement, for whatever it is that secret desire in your heart that you want to achieve, you want to create, you want to do in this lifetime, and know that all the talent, abilities that you need for that, to fulfill that desire, is already within you, and you just have to cultivate it. You have to bring it out into service, and any resources you need will be made available to you, because God is fair and God will support you as long as you rise up to the challenge. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I will be back with another amazing episode. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull Khan signing off. Take care and bye for now.